Happy Homebrew Wednesday. Sorry, I'm a day late. It seems like when my wife goes away she has an annual convention at work that takes her away for a week, so she's in Colorado. But whenever she leaves, we're like signed up for like triple soccer practice. There's like a soccer tournament for the kids over the weekend. There's multiple appointments through the week. I think she schedules a lot of extra stuff throughout the week, a lot of extracurricular stuff, just to make me stress out. So anyway, I'm drinking a Saison DuPont. It's supposed to be #1 Belgian farmhouse. I don't know. Kind of on the Saison kick right now, so. Cheers. Sorry, I did that in reverse. So anyway, yeah, so I missed the Homebrew Wednesday yesterday. I'm really fired up, man. There's been a lot of cool stuff going on last several weeks. A lot of new people coming into the homebrew scene. You saw Mike Phillips and SJ got together, I guess it was last night, and did some beer tastings of the Dean List and made me very, very happy. And I can't wait to get Mike Phillips's beer when he sends them so I can, do a review of his beers, because SJ's right, it really is cool when you get to watch someone else, tasting your beer, and I don't know, there's a fun thing about that. It's not a hassle, really. It's a lot of fun because, one, if you have something that you think you did a good job on, you let other people taste it. It's kind of like Christmas. They get to, you watch other people open presents and you kind of get some enjoyment out of that. Plus, two, you get feedback on your beers, which is kind of cool. That's just always cool. It's interesting. Kind of like, getting feedback on your BJCP competitions. Get those little sheets. It's very interesting, but it's cooler to watch it in real time or near real time on BrewTube, because you can actually see facial expressions and whether or not people really enjoyed it. So cheers to Mike and SJ and a lot of other folks that I kind of beer ferried out over the last week. Downside is I'm out of beer now, so I got to get through some more batches. I've got a buttload of bottles that I've been emptying, and got to clean those up and get them sanitized. I can send out another round of beer mails. So you're going to see some footage later of a brew day I did this past Saturday. Was it this past? Yeah, this past Saturday. So it was a rebrew of the Vernal Equinox, and speaking of Mike Phillips, he video called me. We were both doing a brew day at the same time. I think he was supposed to have a massive brew day with his homebrew club, but didn't, when he planned it, didn't realize that it was a day after St. Patrick's Day. So you'll see later in the footage, I had to go running because I wasn't feeling too hot. But anyway, so he calls me, and it's right as I'm doing the mash, and I'm trying to show my daughter, hey, bring her over, and I go, hey, this is where it's called mashing in or doughing in or whatever. So I'm explaining the process to her. Well, I don't pay attention, and when I go to underlet through the pump into, and I'm showing her, yeah, now you can see the grains are kind of moving because the water level's coming up, and it didn't occur to me that when it got wet, it wasn't warm, and I didn't really pay any attention. So I'm stirring it around, showing her how it should look like oatmeal. All of a sudden, I have this white pasty looking mash, and I'm like, that's funny. It didn't look like that last time I brewed Vernal Equinox. I wonder why. Wonder why that is. And right about that time is when Mike Phillips video called me, and he was doing his brew day and kind of had me as a little guest spot. And I'm talking about, the brew I'm doing and this and that. And it's not until I'm halfway through talking on that video segment that I look up at the EBC controller and see the temperature at 83 degrees in the mash system, so or in the mash tun. So as soon as I got off the phone with Mike Phillips, I said, man, then I thought about it. I said, it's an electric system. All I got to do is punch in the temperature. It'll be an extended protein rest. I don't know what that's going to do to the beer, how it's going to change, if it changes it at all. So I went from 83 in about 10 minutes all the way up to 154, and all was good. Now think about this. If you didn't have an electric system and you're doing this in an igloo, that would have been really, really, really bad. Mash Paddle was telling us the other night that he accidentally one time mashed in with uncrushed grain, and then he had to somehow he drained the water out, then he took the mash or he took the grains and he ran them through a crusher, but then because it was wet, they were more malleable and they wouldn't snap, it wouldn't crush the husk. And so I think he ended up using a immersion crusher, immersion blender, immersion crusher, something like that. and was able to get it crushed. But he said it turned out being a very good beer. So I'm actually kind of excited to see what this Vernal Equinox, turns out as. Now, another issue with this beer is, I usually pitch unless it's going to be a 7. I pitch one pure pitch. I don't even do starters. I like using White Labs pure pitch or Y yeast smack packs, or dry yeast, sprinkle it on or whatever. I've gotten some dry yeast from SJ, some Mangrove Jack, but I never do starters, and it seems to work out fine. Most of the beers I've done, with the exception of one, everyone always comments on it that's pretty clean fermentation. So I really like those pure pitches, and even the I forget what they're called, but the stuff that comes in the can, Imperial, I think it's there's a brand, and those things work fine. I've never had a problem with fermentation issues just doing direct pitch with liquid yeast or even dry yeast. So, but anyway, I did this Vernal Equinox, and I did a double pitch of, because I wasn't sure how far it was going to dry. It's kind of one of those borderlines where you're like 1066, and you're like, well, is this going to be an over 7% beer, depending on how much it ferments. So I double pitched the White Labs, and then I get up the next morning, and usually, sometimes I'll finish up in the early evening, and then by that night, like 9 o'clock, I'll start seeing it bubbling already. Well, that didn't happen. Then the next morning I get up, I didn't see it, and then I'm kind of worried. Then by the end of the day, and I remember I posted a note in the chat group saying, hey, I'm a little worried. Haven't seen this in a while. Usually I get bubbles pretty quick. So a couple of you guys commented, and I know Dan Desolate said, hey, I recommend you just kind of shake it up. So I went down there to go kind of gently rock the fermenter, and I started to see the lid was kind of slightly bulging. So I'm like, okay. So I did rock it a little bit, and then later that night it was found. Now it's been bubbling on pretty well. So it's starting to slow down now, and I'll probably be done and getting ready to go cold crash this weekend. So anyway, that's the update on the Vernal Equinox. On a bad note, I might have to be doing neurosurgery thing again. I started having problems. Originally I had surgery about a year ago because the left side I was getting pain and numbness in my hand, and the surgery fixed it. I mean, I woke up the next day, or woke up right after surgery, and I was, it was like, go forth and do good things. You were healed, and it's been fine on the left side. But for some reason, this past week or this past month, it's shifted to the right side, and especially the last couple of weeks, it's gotten really bad. So went and saw a doc today, and they're gonna do some tests, and we'll see what happens. So keeping my fingers crossed that I don't have to end up in the hospital again, because that's just don't want to do it. So, but maybe if I do, maybe MASH will bring another case of beer over to me. So anyway, well, that's all of the update. Kind of short one this week. Yeah, I'm really digging the community lately. All kind of guys putting up new content. And just one more shout out to Wally Feck, man. Your videos are killing me. The your little subliminal messaging stings that you're doing when you're drinking and all that. Anyway, I'm rambling on. Hey, have a happy homebrew, and have a very happy homebrew Wednesday. Cheers. Happy Homebrew Wednesday. So it's the day after St. Patrick's Day. It was a rough night last night. I had a lot of Baltic Porter from Mash Paddle, and I think it was very high ABV. Yeah, it was high ABV. So I had to get up and do an early morning run this morning. So I feel much better. And we're doing today a rebrew of Vernal Equinox. I need to put my target gravities up here, but here's the hop schedule. So it looks like half an ounce of Equinox, or Equino, or HBC 366, whatever you want to call it. Half an ounce of Equinox at 60 minutes, half an ounce at 30 minutes, and then I don't have another. I'm sorry, half an ounce of Equino in 60 minutes, half an ounce each of Galaxy and Equinox at 30 minutes, and then you don't do another hop drop until flame out. I'll do a whirlpool. I'll lower it to 180 and do a whirlpool because I like doing it. This time I'm actually using the right hops. Last time I had Equino and I had Citra because my homebrew shop didn't have Galaxy. So I was able to get Galaxy. So interested to see what this rebrew. The first one was great, you know, even using Citra. So I'm interested to see what the Galaxy does. I know that the guys whose recipe this is says that particular hop combination is awesome. So we'll see what happens. Also toned down the melanoid in a little bit to try to get a little less of that malty character to see what that would do for the beer too. So I went from 8 ounces of melanoidin down to 6 ounces, and then the rest of the grain bill is 10.25 I think ounces of Maris Otter as a base, and then you have a half a pound each of Crystal 20 and Crystal 40. So that's oh, and then you use London ESB yeast. So that's it. Had a snafu when I mashed in today, and I've never done this before. I actually got a video call from the Raging Goat Brewery, I think. Did a video call. He was doing a brew day, and I'd sent him a beer mail package this weekend. So he shot me a note. He's doing a brew day same time I am, and I wasn't paying attention, and I mashed in using strike water that was not heated up. And so I'm sitting there stirring, and and I had my daughter come over, and I was showing her what the mash looks like and how you underlet, and I'm like, wow, this doesn't normally look this chalky. It's like this white kind of pasty look, and I wasn't getting the smell that I normally get. So I looked up at my EBC, expecting to see like 140, 145 degrees that I usually get when I strike in, and then I have to go through the heat exchanger. It's at like 80 degrees, so I wasn't expecting to see that, and then it took me about a half-second delay to, oh crap. But if I'd have done this in my old, in the old manual system, you'd have been screwed. I mean, there's no way to. I don't know what you would have done once you put the mash in a igloo, how you would get it hot again. But luckily, when you have a heat exchanger, you just dial up the temperature, and it took about 10 minutes to go from 83 degrees up to 154. So anyway, I'm sitting. I got about another 18 minutes or so left in the mash. With an extended protein rest, and then I'll start heating up for a boil. So, cheers. So I'm just about done with my sparge. This has been a very slow sparge. I right at about 7 gallons collected, and right at 10:10. So it's about time to stop. Cheers. Nothing like having a vernal equinox while brewing vernal equinox. Cheers. I'm about halfway through. I just did the 30-minute hop edition.